Now, you notice I got yet a different beverage. This is called Hint. Hint. Basically water with a hint of fruit flavor in it. Yeah, because I want to say this is the first. Is this the first video? Yeah, this is the first video I've done since I had my last GERD attack. Now, my Patreon subscribers, they already know about it, so this ain't nothing new to them. But for those of you who only watch my free YouTube videos, yeah, I suffer from something called GERD, which another term for GERD would be stomach acid reflux. Stomach acid reflux. In the last roughly year and a half, I've had 4 incidences of GERD attacks. 3 of those 4 actually required me to go to the emergency room. I had to go to the emergency room. My last one was that Sunday after I did my last free YouTube video. That Sunday after I did my last free YouTube video, which was, let me check real quick. It was my last free. Okay, that was September 13th. September 13th was my last free video, which was on a Thursday. So yeah, that must have been Sunday, September 16th. Sunday, September 16th was when I had my last GERD attack. You don't want to experience GERD. Trust me on that. You don't want to experience GERD. Before I move on with my video, here's the essence of GERD. All of us human beings, our stomachs are essentially just a vat of acid. That's the main thing you have in your stomach is acid. If you saw the movie Alien, or you've had a college level or a high school level chemistry class, you know the effects of acid. Acid breaks down shit. Like if you pour acid on, say, a piece of steak, it's going to break down that meat. It's going to basically dissolve it. That's how your food gets digested. Like, speaking of steak, when you eat steak or eat a double cheeseburger or eat pizza or any other food item, the number one thing that breaks down your food and dissolves it is the acid in your stomach. The acid in your stomach. Now, you don't feel the effects of your acid while it's in your stomach because your stomach has like a protective layer. It has a thick protective layer inside your stomach that protects you from feeling any adverse effects from that stomach acid. But yeah, all of us have stomach acid in our stomachs because, again, that's what dissolves your food. What happens when you suffer from GERD or stomach acid reflux is that your acid comes out of your stomach into what's known as your esophagus, which is like the tube that leads from your throat to your stomach. The tube that leads from your throat to your stomach is known as your esophagus. And when your stomach acid starts coming up into your esophagus towards your throat, that's when you're going to experience what's known as heartburn. 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 Yeah. And anytime you experience a severe case of heartburn, that means you're experiencing a GERD attack. Again, I've experienced 4. The first one I experienced was, I want to say, July of last year. Then I experienced one in mid-December of last year. Then I experienced one in mid-August of this year. And then I experienced my fourth one again on Sunday, September 16th. Anyway, long story short, I got bad news well, I was going to say I got bad news for you, but it ain't bad news for you. It's bad news for me. You know how I always used to hold up Zevia? I can't drink Zevia anymore. Even though it's sugar-free, which is why I loved it, I can't drink it anymore because if you suffer from GERD, carbonated drinks exacerbate the adverse effects of GERD. Yeah, I found out just in the last week and a half, 2 weeks that, yeah, when you suffer from GERD, carbonated drinks exacerbate. They don't directly cause GERD, but they exacerbate it. Meaning, the term exacerbate means if something is already bad, it makes it worse. The main things I have to avoid when you have GERD, if anybody suffers from GERD, there's at least 3 types of food items you got to avoid. Number one, any food item that's very greasy or full of fat, like fried chicken, French fries, fried hamburgers, fried cheeseburgers, anything that's very greasy, you got to avoid completely, or at bare minimum, you got to keep it down to a bare minimum. Second, anything that's very spicy. Any foods that are very spicy, like peppers. For me, like I love Caribbean jerk chicken wings. Can't eat those anymore. And the third thing is, I want to say, is simply chocolate. Chocolate. And I love some chocolate. I don't eat chocolate like super regularly, but yeah, anything that has a high chocolate content is bad for GERD. Oh, and the fourth thing again would be carbonated drinks. Carbonated drinks. So yeah, man, in the last 2 weeks, man, I've like completely changed a lot of things in my diet, man. Like if I had to name a couple things I eat either regularly or semi-regularly that I'm no longer eating. I used to eat Hooters chicken wings and fried chicken wings in general. Can't eat fried chicken wings. I can eat baked or grilled chicken wings, but not fried. I haven't eaten really any fried foods in the last 2 weeks. I haven't drank any carbonated things in the last 2 weeks. Anyway, enough about my personal health. Here's the reason I'm doing this video. First of all, did any of you see my interview that I had just last Tuesday with O'Shea Duke Jackson, who's the editor-in-chief of the Negro Manosphere? If not, I'll put the link in the comment section below. And one of the things we talked about was the Bill Cosby sentencing, and even more so, just the whole Me Too movement era. Dating in the Me Too movement era. You know, the big thing right now is the Supreme Court Justice candidate, Brett Kavanaugh. He's all in the news because a woman from his past accused him of trying to fuck her while he was drunk. But now, technically, speaking of the interview with O'Shea, some of the stuff I'm going to say in this video, I technically already covered in that interview with O'Shea. So if you already watched that interview with O'Shea, some of the stuff I'm going to say in this video is going to be somewhat repetitive, but I feel like it needs to be repeated. Here's what Alan Roger Currie is tired of. Is people in the manosphere in general, and even more specifically, other dating coaches and or pickup artists suggesting that if a man is mole one with women and upfront, specific, and straightforward with his sexual desires, interests, and intentions with a woman, that he's going to get locked up in jail because we're living in the Me Too movement era. If you believe that, you know what I got to say to you. If you believe that, you know what I got to say to you. Insert dog face here. Now, you know I'm going to follow that up by using the S word. You know I don't like to use the S word. I don't like to apply the S word to people. I really don't. As much as possible, I try to avoid using the S word with people, but I'm going to use the S word with people in this situation. Anybody who tells other men that if you use a direct approach with women, or more specifically, my Mo 1 approach with women, that you're going to end up locked up in jail, you're stupid. You're stupid. Quote me on that shit. You're stupid. That's what you are. You're unintelligent. You're a stupid motherfucker. And if you want to get on Skype with me, get on the phone with me, I'll tell you directly, you're stupid. You're stupid. You lack intelligence. That's what Alan Roger Currie got to say about that. You're stupid. Yeah, in just the last roughly week and a half, I've come across at least a half a dozen guys that made comments along those lines. One was a dating coach. I'm not going to say his name, or at least not yet. I might by the time that this video is in, but right now I'm not going to say his name. But everybody know, I think most people probably know who I'm talking about, because he recently came out with a book within the last month, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, which I purchased. So he can't say I didn't support him. I purchased his ebook. I read it. This other dating coach, he's African American. That gives you another clue of who I'm talking about. I purchased his ebook. And his ebook is funny. It's funny. Now, here's what I'll say on the positive end. Here's what I'll say. Since I know some people going to say, oh, man, Alan, you just dogging out his ebook, man, because you don't like him and you hating on him. No, I'm going to give a balanced review. I'm going to give the plus and the minus. Here's the good of his ebook. If you're a young guy, emphasis on the word young, if you're a young guy, and let's say you're just totally ignorant to the world of PUA concepts, PUA terminology, and what's generally known as the indirect method of hooking up with women, the indirect method of hooking up with women, if you're totally ignorant to that, then I will go ahead and say his ebook is worth reading. His ebook is worth reading. So that's knowing people, I would say that book is going to benefit. If you're a young person, let's say 16, 17, 18, anywhere from as young as 16 to as old as maybe 24 years old. At most 29 years old. And you're just pretty much totally ignorant to the world of PUA concepts, basic concepts of pickup artistry, terminology used in the pickup community, and what's generally known as the indirect approach of hooking up with women. Then that's when I would go ahead and endorse his book. I would say his book is worth reading. The negative of the book would be, if I had to narrow it down to just two things, as expected, a lot of this book is very repetitive. He basically expresses a lot of things that have already been expressed in other people's books, including my own. Like, percentage-wise, I would say at minimum, at least 15% of the stuff, the content of his ebook is stuff that's already been expressed in my own books. Particularly Mo 1, possibility of sex, and the beta male revolution. So yeah, I would say no less than roughly 15% of the stuff in his books is stuff that's already been expressed in my books. It's just a repeat of stuff I've already said. I give you a couple examples of stuff he has in there that comes pretty much directly from my books. One is never make yourself too accessible or too available to women. Always be either genuinely very active and busy so that you're not just sitting around the crib, thinking about women all day. Or if you're not genuinely busy, at least act like you're busy. I say that. If anybody owns my 2014 Mo 1 audiobook, there's a chapter where I say that specifically. I say you should never, ever, ever make yourself too easily available or too easily accessible to women. Never give women the impression that you just got all the free time in the world to pursue them and interact with them. Anyway, this dating coach essentially says the same thing in his ebook. He essentially says the same thing in his ebook. In his ebook, he refers to that as focusing on your purpose. Focusing on your purpose. He says you should never make yourself too easily accessible to available. Again, that stuff I expressed in my very first draft of Mo 1 back in 1999. And most recently, I expressed it in my 2017 updated version of Mo 1. In my 2014 audiobook version of Mo 1. Was at least one other thing he says in his ebook that I could say that I already expressed in my ebook. Just generally being on the lookout for women who are just looking to use you and exploit you for your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship. Matter of fact, if there's one phrase he just straight up lifted from my book, I mean literally just straight up lifted from my book, is the phrase non-sexual attention and non-sexual companionship. Ask O'Shea Duke Jackson, since I brought up O'Shea Duke Jackson. Me and O'Shea were talking about this. I asked him directly. This was a few months ago. I said, who was the first person you ever heard in the manosphere use the phrase non-sexual attention or non-sexual companionship? He's, without hesitating, he said, you. He said, I never heard anybody use that phrase or that term before I met you. Nobody used to use that term in the manosphere. There's nobody you can think of, particularly in either book form or in terms of books and or articles. Books and or articles. I don't know anybody who used to use that term before me. I don't know anybody who used that term. Non-sexual, because I've always been a guy who divides men and women's attention and companionship into two categories. Their sexual attention and companionship and their non-sexual attention and companionship. I would argue that I was the first major person in the manosphere to do that, to always divide men and women's attention and companionship into those two categories. Anyway, this dating coach, in his book, he has the phrase non-sexual attention and non-sexual companionship. Hashtag ripoff. Hashtag borderline plagiarism. Anyway, what was my main point? So, of course, yeah, he takes a jab at the direct approach. He takes a jab. He doesn't specifically mention Mo 1, although he did a video where he mentioned Mo 1. But in his ebook, he doesn't mention Mo 1. He just categorizes, talks about the direct approach. And he basically has 3 criticisms of the direct approach. 3 criticisms of the direct approach. Number 1 criticism, and in his defense, he's not the only one with this criticism, because there's some guys who I'm going to be seeing in a couple of weeks at what's known as the 21 convention. For the second year in a row, I'm going to be speaking at the 21 convention. And some guys who are going to be at the 21 convention did a video where they were talking about approaching women and just dealing with women in general. And, excuse me one second. Yeah, and in one of their videos, I was looking in the comments section. And there was at least one, if not 2 guys that made the comment, yeah, You can't really be direct anymore with women, man. You're going to get locked up in jail if you're direct. You're going to end up in jail if you're direct. And again, that's what this other African-American dating coach says in his ebook. He implies that. I don't know if I would say he flat out says that, but he implies that. He implies that if you use a direct approach, that you could potentially find yourself in jail. Insert dog face here. Once again, hashtag stupid statements. Hashtag stupid statements. Now, again, this is where I'm going to get somewhat repetitive if you've already watched my interview with O'Shea Duke Jackson. Because a lot of what I'm about to say now, I already kind of covered in that interview. But here's the deal, man. When it comes to the Me Too movement, I would say all of the male targets of the Me Too movement basically fall into three categories. Most of the guys, just about every guy who's been targeted by the Me Too movement has exhibited behavior that basically falls into three categories. Let's start with category number one. Speaking of those men who say if you're direct, you'll end up going to jail. The first category is that the Me Too movement has targeted is men who have exhibited behavior towards women. Men who have exhibited behavior towards women, particularly sexual behavior towards women, that is illegal. That is illegal. And that, of course, would be any form of sexual assault, rape, date rape, any other form of forced sex or coercion. Those forms of behavior are illegal. You cannot rape a woman. You cannot date rape a woman. You cannot sexually assault a woman. Oh, if I had that on at least one more, would be this other one. Sometimes people consider it illegal and other people just consider it inappropriate. But it could go either way, just under the category of illegal or at minimum just inappropriate. And that would be groping. So that's category number one. If you look at a lot of the guys who've been targeted by the Me Too movement, like if I had to give one or two names, Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein is accused of raping and date raping women. And if he gets convicted, he will be going to prison. He's been convicted of raping, date raping women, and I want to say also groping women. Speaking of the interview with O'Shea Duke Jackson, Bill Cosby, who we discussed. Bill Cosby was accused of drugging women and then date raping them. And he recently got convicted and now he's in prison. Now, my question to you, and particularly the guys who try to take jabs at the direct approach, and more specifically the Mode 1 direct approach, what does Mode 1 have to do with raping a woman, date raping a woman, sexually assaulting a woman, or groping a woman? I'll wait. I challenge you. Put it in my comment section. What does Mode 1 have to do with raping a woman, date raping a woman, sexually assaulting a woman, or groping a woman? You want the cheat sheet? You want the answer? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't encourage, endorse, or condone any of those forms of behavior. I've never in my life encouraged, endorsed, or condoned a man raping a woman, a man date raping a woman, a man sexually assaulting a woman, or even at minimal level, a man groping a woman. I've never endorsed that or condoned that, ever. So that excludes that category from any association with Mode 1. So yeah, the first category of men who have been targeted by the Me Too movement, again, is men who've exhibited behavior, and more specifically, sexual behavior, that could be objectively considered illegal and a blatant violation of a woman's personal liberties. A blatant violation of a woman's personal liberties. You got that? Get it? Got it? Good. Hold on one second. Okay. So we covered category number 1 of men who've been targeted by the Me Too movement. Second category of men who've been targeted by the Me Too movement is men that did not exhibit any behavior that could be objectively considered illegal, but they exhibited behavior, and more particularly sexual behavior, that made a business subordinate of theirs, a business coworker and or a business colleague of theirs feel uncomfortable in the workplace. Feel uncomfortable in the workplace. That's the second category of men. Is men that made women feel uncomfortable in a work-related environment. In a work-related environment. Some examples of that would be men groping women, fondling their bodies and groping their bodies. Men exposing themselves to women, like unzipping their pants and basically pulling out their dick. Men trying to motivate women to have sex with them by offering them a promotion at their job or a higher salary, or basically saying, if you give me some pussy, I'll put you in this movie. Or if you give me some pussy, I'll put you in this music video. Or if you give me some pussy, I'll do this for you career-wise, or I'll do that for you financially. That's the second category of men that have been targeted by the Me Too movement. It's guys who have groped and fondled women's bodies without those women's consent. Guys who have exposed themselves to women, particularly in a work-related environment. And guys who have offered to offer women career-enhancing or financial-enhancing favors in exchange for that woman's sexual companionship. Now, I'm going to ask you again, based on what I just told you about the behavior in category 2, what about that relates to Mode 1? What about that relates to Mode 1? I ain't never encouraged men to go up to women and just start groping them and fondling their bodies, particularly in a work environment. Even in a non-work environment, I don't endorse that or encourage that, but definitely not in a work-related environment. I don't encourage men to unzip their pants and pull out their dick and just expose themselves to a woman. I definitely don't encourage that in a work-related environment. And for the most part, even in a non. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I've admitted this on a video before. There's a couple of times where I was in the process of talking dirty to a woman, and once I knew I got her pussy wet, I pulled out my dick. There's been at least 2, 3, 4 times I've done that. But the only time I've done that is when I knew for a fact that I had a woman sexually aroused. Like, perfect example, the one story I told probably the most in that category would be my infamous grocery store story, when I had the woman sucking my dick in the grocery store back in the mid-'80s, summer of 1986. See, that was a woman who I talked dirty to her, then we start kissing, and while we were still in the grocery store, I pulled out my dick, and she dropped her knees and started sucking my dick. So that was an incident where you can say I pulled out my dick. Some people say, oh, Alan exposed himself. But that was only after I knew I had that woman turned on. That's the only time I really do something like that, is pull out my dick like somewhere public, is when I know I got a woman turned on. But I don't endorse doing no shit like that in no workplace. Oh, matter of fact, I did tell a story. If you remember this story I told, I admitted this in where I did a video, I think in December. It was called Don't Get Laid Where You Get Paid. I did confess a story now that I'm thinking about it. There was a time I worked for this company in the mid 2000s where I actually did have a woman sucking my dick at work, and I got fired for it. But the consolation prize was, so did she. So did she. Neither one of us would have gotten fired if she would have kept her mouth shut. And on a side note, that just shows you, a lot of women like to say men got big mouths and kiss and tell. But see, I kept it to myself that she sucked my dick. She went and told like 2 of her coworkers, and she, of all dumb people, she told her boss, her female boss, that she sucked my dick. Then we both got in trouble. I got fired. She got fired. Anyway, going back to the whole Me Too movement thing, you can't be trying to get your dick sucked at work. Okay? You can't be trying to fuck women at work. You can't be grabbing on women's tits and ass while you at work. Unless that woman gives you just like a blatant green light, basic, covert, overt consent for you to do something like that. So category number 2 doesn't fall under the Mode 1 umbrella because I don't endorse or condone that shit. Then the third and final category of men who have been targeted by the Mode 1 movement are men, if nothing else, if they ain't guilty of anything else, they might not be guilty of raping, date raping, and sexually assaulting women. They might not be guilty of groping women or exposing themselves to women or trying to offer women a better career or more money in exchange for sex. But here's the one minimal thing some men have been guilty of. And, since I named a guy for the first category, which was Harvey Weinstein, a guy would name in the second category, I can name 2 guys who fall in the category number 2. The former news anchor, burp number 1, Charlie Rose, who I was actually a big fan of. Charlie Rose. That's what led him to get fired from his job at CBS. He was exposing himself to his female personal assistants. He was exposing himself. Louis C.K., the comedian, he exposed himself to some fellow comedians during some kind of comedy festival. And, he got in trouble for it. Now, the third category is men that didn't really do anything illegal, and they didn't do anything that would violate some type of work-related policy or work-related guideline. But their main problem is that, if nothing else, they simply exhibited behavior that could be considered sexually duplicitous. You always hear me talk about that term, sexual duplicity. There's a lot of women who are sexually duplicitous in society, but there's a lot of men who are sexually duplicitous. What does it mean, in case you forgot, to be sexually duplicitous? Sexually duplicitous means you act one way in public, but privately you act totally different. Or similarly, you act one way with one group of people, but you act totally different with another group of people. For example, if you're a woman that when you're in public, you act like you only indulge in sex within the context of marriage or within the context of a long-term boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but privately, you've indulged in short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex multiple times, that means you're sexually duplicitous. You're sexually duplicitous. Same with a man. If you're a man and you publicly act like, you publicly act like you're Mr. Wholesome, Mr. Relationship, that you're all about only engaging in sex with women within the context of a monogamous relationship, but privately, you fucking all kinds of women casually, you're duplicitous. You're duplicitous. Women, just like a lot of men, don't like women who are sexually duplicitous. I've pointed this out before in a couple videos. Women don't like men who are duplicitous. And if I had to highlight one name in that category, would be Aziz Ansari. Aziz Ansari. That's the only thing he was guilty of in his situation. He wasn't guilty of raping or date raping or sexually assaulting a woman. He wasn't accused of groping or fondling a woman while she was at work or exposing himself to a woman while she was at work or while he was at work. But if nothing else, the one thing he was guilty of doing, he exhibited behavior that was sexually duplicitous. In other words, he publicly tends to present himself. Man, I'm getting all these phone calls. Why are these people calling me, man? While I'm doing my video. Shit pissing me off. Aziz Ansari, man, he was guilty of being sexually duplicitous. He publicly acts like he's Mr. Gentleman, Mr. Mild-mannered gentleman, Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Easy to get along beta male, but yet, privately, he's a kinky freak just like a whole bunch of other motherfuckers. He's a kinky freak, and he got exposed for it. Now, it's not a crime to be a kinky freak. It's not a crime to be a kinky freak, but the thing is, and this is one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Mode 1. If you've thoroughly read my book, Mode 1, or listened to the audiobook version, that's one of the main reasons why I wrote Mode 1, was because I used to be like that when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I was a guy who was sexually duplicitous. I would publicly try to act like I was all about just relationship sex, but privately, I knew I was a motherfucker who liked to have casual sex on a regular basis. And then finally, after I came up with my Mode 1 philosophy, I was basically like, I ain't gonna try to pretend like I'm Mr. Innocent and Wholesome with any women. I ain't gonna try to act like I'm Mr. Monogamy oriented. I like to fuck. I like to fuck multiple women. And I'm very open and honest about that. I live a very transparent life. I live a very transparent life. Ain't no skeletons in my closet. So, we covered all three categories. Which of those three categories has to do with being Mode 1? So for all those guys who say, oh, if you're direct with women, it'll lead to you going to jail. How? Explain to me how. Explain in specific terms how. How will letting a woman know you want to fuck her, letting a woman know you want to be sexually intimate with her, lead to you going to jail? Explain that. Explain that. You can't. You won't be able to explain it because you can't. Because it's impossible. It is not illegal to let a woman know you want to have sex with her. It is not illegal to let a woman know you want to have sex with her. As long as you give that woman room to reject you and say, no, I'm not interested, you haven't done anything wrong. As long as you give a woman room to reject you if she's not interested, you have not done anything wrong. I've been Mode 1 with women since I was like 21, 22 years old. I'm 55. I ain't never gone to jail because of being Mode 1. And I've said some shit that's super duper triple X-rated to women. And motherfuckers who know me in real life know I have. Like I told you before, a dating coach, I don't know if he's still a dating coach, but a dating coach named Sasha Daygang, when he hung out with me in London, when I was in London in 2010, he told me straight up, he said, Alan, I've never hung around another man or a human being, period, that's as verbally bold as you are with women. I've never hung around a man that's as verbally bold with women as you are. Man, I can name times I've gone up to a woman and the first thing out of my mouth was, I can't wait to see my dick in your mouth. So if you could go to jail just for saying bold, sexually straightforward shit, I would be on fucking death row. Literally. I would have been on, not only in jail, I would have been on death row if that was a crime. Because I'm telling you, it ain't a motherfucker walking this earth. And I say this with full conviction. It ain't a motherfucker walking this earth that has said more bold, provocative, sexually straightforward comments to women in the very first conversation than Alan Roger Currie. There's not a motherfucker walking this earth that has outdone me in that area. I have said some of the most extremely bold, sexually straightforward shit to women that a man could possibly allow to come out of his mouth. And I ain't never get charged with a crime. You don't even have to use X-rated language to be sexually straightforward, though. And I always point that out. If you were to just go up to a woman and say, let me ask you a question. Do you find me attractive enough to spend time with me in a manner that goes above and beyond a purely platonic friendship? Did I just use profanity with that question? Nope. Did I just use any X-rated language with that question? Nope. Was that question extremely straightforward? You damn right it was. You damn right it was. You damn right it was. That's a very straightforward question to ask a woman. It's just to ask a woman, say, I have a question for you. And she says, sure, what? Do you find me physically attractive enough to spend time with me one-on-one in a manner that goes above and beyond a purely platonic friendship? Right there, you've essentially just told a woman you want to fuck her without using any profanity and without using any X-rated language. Just by asking a question like that, you've let a woman know essentially that you want to have sex with her. How is that question going to land you in jail? Explain that to me like I'm a fifth grader. How is that question going to land you in jail? How is it going to get you fired from your job? Explain that to me like I'm a fifth grader. I'll wait. So all you motherfuckers out here talking about, oh, if you use a direct approach, you'll end up in jail. That's bullshit. If you use a direct approach, you'll end up fired. Now, I ain't going to totally 100% deny that. You shouldn't be trying to get laid where you get work, where you get paid. I did a whole video about that. You shouldn't be trying to fuck no woman that you work with, particularly if she's a subordinate of yours. Particularly if she works under you, like you're her boss or you're her supervisor. You should never be trying to fuck a woman that's your subordinate, ever. I would say in general, you shouldn't be trying to fuck a woman that you work with, period. But I would say more specifically, a woman that is your subordinate, meaning she reports to you. You are her supervisor, her boss, her manager, whatever. You should never, ever, ever be trying to fuck no woman that's your subordinate, ever. You asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. And even as far as duplicity, man, one ain't about being duplicitous. But that's not a crime. Being sexually duplicitous is not going to cause you to go to jail. Being sexually duplicitous is not going to cause you to get fired from your job, but it could, your reputation is going to take a hit. So anyway, enough with this noise. Enough with this Me Too bullshit. I'm going to wrap up the whole Me Too thing by saying this. You know what the Me Too movement era has shown me, if anything? That men need to be more direct with women instead of less direct with women. Let me say that again. The Me Too movement era has shown me that men need to be more direct with women instead of less direct with women. Most of the men who got targeted by the Me Too movement, They weren't direct with women. They was trying to, as I call it, sneak into the pussy. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to sneak into the pussy. Okay, if I'm wrong, if I'm a liar, if you want to prove me a liar, name somebody who's been targeted by the Me Too movement, by women in the Me Too movement, that did this thing and this thing only, that just approached a woman, let a woman know in an upfront, specific, and straightforwardly honest manner that he wanted to become sexually intimate with her at some point in the near or distant future, and he either ended up in jail or ended up fired from his job. Name somebody. I invite you to in my comment section. Give me the name of the person and include a link to the story that describes the details of his situation. If you want to prove me to be a liar, name a guy who the only thing he was guilty of doing was initiating a conversation with a woman and letting her know in his very first conversation with her that he wanted to become sexually intimate with her at some point in the near or distant future. And as a result of him being straightforward with that woman about the fact that he wanted to have sex with her, he either ended up in jail or he ended up fired from his job. He ended up in jail or he ended up fired from his job. Let me know. Put it in the comment section of a guy that falls into one of those two categories. Second thing, going back to this other dating coach, there was 3 things he attacked the direct approach. I already covered one, the whole Me Too, potential Me Too movement consequences and repercussions. So I've already covered that. His second thing was, he said, if you use a direct approach with women, you're going to potentially leave pussy on the table. Leave pussy on the table. Now, I'm not going to get long-winded with this because I already covered this in a previous video. I already covered this. That's bullshit, number one. It's bullshit. Here's the thing, man. I hate when people use terminology and they don't really understand what that terminology means. There's a lot of people who use slogans, phrases, adages, and they really don't know the true meaning behind those slogans, phrases, or adages. Here's what it means to leave something on the table. To leave something, in order to leave something on the table, it has to be put on the table. Let me repeat that. In order for you to leave something on the table, something has to be put on the table. To leave something on the table means when someone presents you with an opportunity to achieve something, obtain something, or experience something, and you respectfully decline that opportunity because you don't like the terms, conditions, and requirements that are associated and required to take advantage of that opportunity. I'll give you 1 or 2 examples. Let's say you were interviewing for a job and you had 2 job offers. One company offered you a job where you would work Monday through Friday and you would earn a salary of $50,000 a year. And another company offered you a job where you would be earning $75,000 a year for essentially the same type of work. But the catch was, with this other job, you would have to work 2 Saturdays per month and 1 Sunday per month. 2 Saturdays per month and 1 Sunday per month. And because of the fact that you want to keep your weekends free and you don't want to have to work on Saturdays and or Sundays, you respectfully decline that job offer for $75,000 a year, and you take the job that only offering you $50,000 a year because you don't have to work on weekends with that job. See, that would be an example of somebody would be able to say, you left $25,000 on the table. You left $25,000 on the table because that other job was offering you a salary that would have paid you $25,000 more than the job you accepted, but you declined it because you didn't want to work on weekends. That would be a classic example of you left money on the table. You left money on the table. When it comes to pussy, let's say a woman said, you met a woman and she said, I'll suck your dick whenever you want me to. I'll give you some pussy whenever you want me to. But you have to guarantee me that you're going to tell all your friends that I'm your long-term girlfriend and that you are leaning towards proposing to me within the next year. And you say, nah, I don't think I can do that. I don't mind you being my fuck buddy, but I'm not going to go as far as to refer to you as my girlfriend and tell my friends that I'm going to propose to you within the next year or two. I'm not willing to do that. She says, okay, if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to get any of this good pussy. See, that would be an example of you leaving pussy on the table. She offered you some pussy, but you declined it because you didn't like the terms, conditions, and requirements that were associated with getting that pussy. That's leaving pussy on the table. If a woman hasn't offered you any pussy, you haven't left any pussy on the table. Let me repeat that. If a woman hasn't officially offered you any pussy, then you're not leaving any pussy on the table. You don't leave pussy on the table until a woman offers you some pussy. That goes for anything in life, whether it's money, employment opportunities. The only time you're leaving something on the table is when somebody puts something on the fucking table. If ain't nobody put shit on the table, how the fuck you gonna leave something on the table if ain't nobody put shit on the table for you to take? Don't say stupid shit to people. Stupid follows stupid. I don't have stupid people following me. And the third thing, he said, this was the funniest to me. Now this is funny. This is where I'm going to wrap up. He said that a direct approach is only good for men when the woman already starts out having an above average degree of interest in you. An above average degree of interest in you. He basically said, if you meet a woman who only has an average to less than average interest in you, a direct approach is going to hurt you more than help you. The only time a direct approach is going to help you is if a woman starts out having an above average amount of interest in you. Okay? Now, I disagree with that. But I don't want to get long-winded. I disagree with that. But let's say for argument's sake, let's say that's true. Let's say that's true what he said. Let's say for argument's sake, let's say that's true. Here's where he contradicts himself. He says, if you use a direct approach, you'll only attract women who have an above average interest in you. But yet, in his same ebook, he turns around and says, you should never chase women. You should always put yourself in a position for women to pursue you. You should never aggressively pursue women. You should always improve your physique and improve your career success and financial success to the point where women begin to pursue you. Okay, what fucking woman is going to pursue you that doesn't have an above degree of interest in you? Make that make sense. What woman is going to pursue you unless she has an above average degree of interest in you? Ain't no woman who has an average or less than average degree of interest in you going to pursue you first. The only women who are ever going to pursue you as opposed to you pursuing them are going to be women who are going to have an above average degree of interest in you. But yet he says you shouldn't be direct with women because the only women you'll hook up with is women who only have an above average degree of interest in you. Make that make sense. Marinate on everything I said. I'll talk to you guys. I got a Patreon exclusive live stream on Thursday. If you're a Patreon subscriber, check me out on Thursday at 4:00 p.m. Eastern. I'm out. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Look at her go, please. You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, king. Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. 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 Oh. Oh. Oh.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.